Elliot Friedman on 32 Thoughts went into detail on what the Habs plan to do at the trade deadline, including some details about David Savard and how Jordan Harris is getting a lot more interest than we thought. Plus, Eric Engels, Habs insider, talked about Harris, but also another unexpected player that could very well be on the block for the Montreal Canadiens. You're going to want to stick around for all of that on this episode of Habs Digest. But first, we are proud to announce that this video is sponsored by Rentals.ca, and moves are coming with all the rumors and reports that have been coming out about the Montreal Canadiens, and Kent Hughes fans have been expecting for Kent to make some more shakeups of the roster, which could definitely be exciting for us fans. And if you feel like the Habs and need some extra excitement in your life, it's time to move with Rentals.ca. They have condos, they have apartments, they have houses, whatever you could possibly want.
It's that time. Rentals.ca's got you covered from coast to coast. As you know, check out their website. It's really clean, super easy to use. You're able to find listings in the neighborhoods of your choosing and find great places right there.
100%. And as you guys know, Rentals.ca are big supporters of this channel. They are big Habs fans. So if it's time to move for you, check out the link in the pinned comment or the description. Find your new home, courtesy of Rentals.ca. Let's jump into this video, Jesse. We got to first talk about how some Habs defensemen are on the block. Now, Eric Engels made a nice article talking about a lot of the possibilities for the Habs trade deadline. Now, he's been talking a lot. You know, he has some good connections within the Habs organization. There have been some interesting articles coming out as of late. But the first thing we want to talk about, we will get into Jordan Harris later because Friedman had some pretty interesting comments on that you'll want to stick around for. But Jesse, this is a guy that you have been calling for a trade for a long time. You've said this is possible, and that's Jonathan Kovacevic. As Eric Engels says, he's 6'5", he's a right-handed defenseman. He's only making the league minimum through the end of next year, and Hughes could move him for the right price, but probably won't if someone steps up and pays for Savard. But the thing is, we have Mailloux, we have Reinbacher, we know they're coming for the Canadiens, so it could entice them to move Kovacevic if Savard is sticking around. We will talk a bit about Savard later, but Jesse, it just makes sense if no one's willing to pay the price that Hughes is demanding for Savard. Kovacevic is a solid player on a good contract that can fit into a bottom pairing or even second pairing if needed for another team.
Yeah, Ken's cooking something spicy for sure. You know, and at 6'5", Jonathan Kovacevic, he's got playoffs just written all over him. And I think there's some other important factors to kind of consider when we're looking at the trade target and the likeliest ones for the Montreal Canadiens. That's who's fitting the long-term plans this need, but also looking as a seller here, who has really the space to bring on. Obviously, a lot of teams are really close up to the cap right now with his salary. It's really going to help to improve that third pairing defenseman for your team. If you're looking for a little bit more depth, if you're looking for size to immediately improve, get some depth to your third pairing, you're looking at Jonathan Kovacevic, right? Really likable guy, great in the locker room, great player. You know, it's not so much that we don't like him here in Montreal, just we got so many guys kind of coming up. We know what our timeline sort of is here. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens the next couple of days here with Jonathan Kovacevic.
Yeah, one of the more underrated waiver pickups. I know we all talk about, you know, a number of guys, right? Like, Paul Byron, of course, but Jonathan Kovacevic being as good as he's been, like, yeah, sometimes he's that odd defenseman out who gets healthy scratch, but the Habs have so many young defensemen, guys they want to give minutes. Kovacevic is a very solid player. I think he could be a key contributor for a team that makes a playoff run, even if it is in that like 6th, 7th D role, playing more so like in the game than not. 6'5" guy in the playoffs, like you said, really awesome. But we're not going to spend too much time on Kovacevic. We're going to move a bit on to Jordan Harris. Now, Eric Engels said that don't be surprised if Harris potentially moves from the Canadiens blue line to a retooling team like Calgary or Pittsburgh in exchange for a young forward. He's 23. He's solid. He's established a floor as a bottom pairing defenseman. Lane Hutson is, he's going to be coming in soon, along with some of the other Habs defensemen we've mentioned on the right side, which is somewhere Harris is no stranger to playing, even though he's a left-hand shot. Moving Harris could be how they do it, even if it's just for more draft capital in the end. He's got a great contract. He's young. Even if you take into account he has arbitration rights in the next negotiation as a free agent, this contract is still good. This is the guy that we're going to talk about a bit. And again, stick around for the next segment where we talk about what Friedman had to say about him. But I think he's quickly shooting up the list to be the most likely Habs trade candidate, if you ask me. Even if Kent hasn't said anything explicitly about him, I feel like there's no one who wouldn't want a Jordan Harris.
And it's an opportunity to kind of sell high in a certain way. And I feel like any team getting Jordan Harris is going to kind of get a good deal in a lot of ways, but at the same time, it's like with Struble, playing so with Xhekaj after coming back up from the HL, like playing so well. It was already tough for Jordan Harris. He was almost on the outside looking in. And then with that, it's almost the writings on the wall, whether it's this trade deadline or the off season, right? But again, you have to feel like his 1.4 million going through the next season, that's not going to be a huge impediment for a team to add them. And again, having that depth in a long playoff battle is very, very valuable. We know the Calgary Flames, they've been chopping some defensemen, and they might be looking for somebody kind of serviceable to kind of come and fill in the ranks. It really makes sense if you're another team. You're kind of taking advantage that Montreal has this plethora, and you actually might be getting a good deal here in the long run, but just one that Kent Hughes is just kind of forced to make with what we have going forward. Again, to the point with Kovacevic of kind of realizing who's part of this team's long-term future and who's not.
Yeah, Harris is a great character, guy. He's an awesome player. The Habs really covet him, but if the trade offer is enticing, they might do it. Like you said, Calgary now with the rumors that Hanifin could very well be heading to Tampa, which is apparently his preferred destination. They could use this guy to fill in there, or Pittsburgh, which I think is a really underrated target right now. Pittsburgh is like, they want to make the most with what they've got. They've had a disappointing season, even after acquiring Erik Karlsson. To add a guy like Harris to just help them for the next number of years, I think could be fantastic. So yeah, keep an eye out on Harris, and we're going to stick on that note for a bit as we talk about Elliotte Friedman now. Him and Jeff Marek, of course, 32 Thoughts, they did their podcast today talking about the trade deadline. I had to listen through, all of it, and there's a lot of interesting stuff. But when it came to the Montreal Canadiens, overall, I'm going to show you some notes after, but they kind of said that Kent Hughes is not going to make a move unless he feels like he gets the offer he wants. But Elliotte Friedman, when speaking on Jordan Harris, said, quote, "A lot of teams would love to have him on their blue line." He said the rumors have been all over the place and teams would really love Harris. That market is increasing. Really, really crazy stuff. Just to hear, just a last little note on Harris. Do you think that even Friedman is hearing that like teams would really want him? I think is just, I don't know. I know Friedman likes to speculate a lot, but I'm starting to feel like Jordan Harris getting moved might be, again, I don't want to say inevitable. I don't like to use that term. But if, these rumors are not coming from nowhere, basically. And I think if Kent gets the offer he wants, Harris is for sure gone.
And the reason we're hearing this is because Jordan Harris is one of the few, and if probably the only defenseman that Kent Hughes is actively shopping. When it comes to everybody else, Savard, it's like, okay, if you meet our required, kind of asking price, we'll go for it. Kovacevic even more, but there's maybe a little bit more of the reward there, a little bit of the bigger trade-off with Jordan Harris. So that's why we're hearing it. For me, the reason we're hearing it, his name getting shopped for me is a big, big sign because Kent has realized, okay, we have a little bit too much D right now with Hudson coming in. The fact that's really making me see that like, okay, Kent is trying to make something happen here if he's actively trying to go out, because that's not always what he really does unless he really feels like he needs to make something happen.
Yeah, for sure. And even though he might be thinking, yeah, I can just sit back, as I'm going to show you in a second, this Harris stuff might be more enticing than we thought. If a lot of teams are showing interest, hey, why not? But in general, Hughes and Marek, Friedman and Marek, we're kind of saying that Canadians aren't going to force it. And I think that's a good thing too. I think a Harris deal can manifest itself. But to transition off of him a bit, we're going to talk a bit about David Savard. And he said Savard prefers to stay, so Montreal can sit back and say, make us consider it. And one consideration that a lot of teams have had about David Savard is the fact that they might not think that he fits with their fast pace of play, which is fair. But at the same time, in the same podcast, Jesse, when he was talking about the Leafs, he said, well, look, if there's a right-handed defenseman and you can name them, the Leafs have probably asked about them. But he did specifically say, I know the Leafs have asked about David Savard. Now, here's the thing. Do the Leafs have what it takes to make Kent an offer he just can't refuse? At this point, like, I know there's been rumors of Nick Robertson being shopped. He's very skilled, but has had a lot of injury issues. I don't think any Leafs fan would reasonably say, let's give up Nick Robertson for David Savard. Really don't think so. But I think Savard would fit well on that team. The Leafs have also talked about Nick Jensen, about Justin Holl, bringing him back. Who knows? Do you think there's a world where Savard can move to the Leafs? Or do you think that the Atlantic Division and huge rival tax is just going to be too much for them to overcome? Not to mention Savard's contract that's going to be almost impossible to fill without a broker.
It'll be a lot, but we were hearing before that the Leafs weren't willing to give up a first-round pick, but it now seems that they are, and it seems like there'll be a tax there. But for me, they're desperate. They're wishing, they're hoping, they're praying that they can get somebody on the right-handed of defense that can really play that defensive game. They even had Mitch Marner playing defense recently to just kind of show you kind of they're just grasping at straws, right? To try and make something happen. It seems like kind of that same story every year with the Leafs of being in this position. So this kind of turns into kind of a situation here where it's almost a good thing that he has a year left on his deal. It's like the Leafs are thinking, okay, at least maybe we're not going to have to play the same game again at the deadline, but you have to feel, and rightfully so, if it is to the Leafs, there's going to be an increased price there. I think whenever it's within your division, whenever, especially in your conference, there is that added tax there. So for me, it only makes sense. It would definitely hurt me a lot, but I mean, Savard is that type of player that would have benefited the Leafs for a long time. And I feel it's hurt them that they haven't been able to add a player like that kind of for a couple of years to kind of have that cohesion in their lineup.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's that cohesion that's the issue for the Leafs, and Savard seems like a good locker room guy, but at the same time, he wants to stay. I think the Habs are going to keep him unless a team blows their socks off with an offer. The Leafs come in with a first-round pick and a young forward. Who knows? All likelihood he stays, but Jordan Harris seems like he might be on the move. Guys, what do you think about all these trade rumors? Could Savard go to the Leafs? Could Kovacevic or Harris be on the move? Harris to the Penguins? Let us know down below. All this stuff is picking up like crazy, but for now, that'll do it for this episode of Habs Digest. If you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, subscribe to the channel. I don't know what we're going for now. 15,000 subs? Let's do it. Hit that button now. We'd really appreciate it. I'm Josh Gosse, my co-host, Jesse Poirier. We'll catch you in the next one.